from our parents, from my parents' parents, and it goes on and on.
Oh, you were taught to believe in God.
From our parents, from my parents' parents, and it goes on and on.
Okay. Have you ever had any doubts about God's existence?
No.
None? You never thought about it?
No.
Okay. Do you think that you would be the same person if you didn't believe in God?
Probably not.
And what type of person do you think you'd be?
I don't know. Probably if I don't believe in God, I'd probably be miserable. I mean, you have to have some kind of faith. And sometimes the faith is what keeps a person believing in God.
Good day, viewers. David Oliverio, the preaching humanist here.
Ben Estaville.
And I'm Josh Zweifler.
Welcome to Atheist Vanguard. When we go out on the street with video cameras, we have dialogue with believers. Many of it, the videos that we have, friendly discourse, and of course, we also have the dissent and so forth. So we had a video that was called Taught to Believe. I interviewed this particular lady, and the first thing she said when I asked her about her upbringing and how she came to Jesus and Christianity was, she said, I came to God, or I believe in God, simply because my parents and my parents' parents and parents and parents and parents taught me about it. So basically, what we have here is good old-fashioned Proverbs chapter 22, child indoctrination. Train up a child in the way he, doesn't say she, he or she is trained, and they should go, and when they're old, they will not depart from it. That's kind of a lie. I departed from it. Many of us have departed from it. So
it's possible. So that's a belief that you're taught to hold. And there's one of those 10 commandments. You know the Bible a lot better than I do. Is there a commandment that tells you that you should honor your mother and father, and if you don't, you deserve to die for it?
Wait, let me think about that. Boy, that's a tough one. Somewhere in that book of Exodus, somewhere in there, yeah.
So my question is, did this person who was raised to believe from her parents or parents' parents, generations untold, did they actually have any kind of choice in the matter? Could they possibly not believe?
I wish you would have been there to ask her that. That's a good one. Yeah, very good one.
I think you always have a choice, but with this woman, it seems more like she was really dedicated to the belief because my guess would be that in her family and based on what she said, because it's going back generations, these beliefs, I really think it's just like in that atmosphere, it's seen as weakness if you don't have that strong faith, and if you ever falter at all, that's a sign of weakness. And it's, to me, that's like super dangerous because it encourages you to never question your beliefs. So once you have your belief, that's it. You have it, and it bleeds out into other parts of your life. You know, this is supposedly the most important thing in the world, right? It's more important than life itself.
It binds families for generations.
Right. And when you have these ways of thinking in this most important thing in your life, it's going to bleed into other areas of your life. You know, like the consequences of having those doubts are very, very, they come on slowly with religion, and they're very hard to kind of see. They're a lot more subtle. But if you take a situation like, you know, you're driving a car and you have some kind of weird belief that doesn't make sense to drive in the car, the consequences are immediate and they're extreme. So it's a lot easier to kind of see that and not let that take hold in your life. But that's, for me, that's where the problem of this kind of thinking is. It bleeds over.
Do you think it's dangerous?
I do. Yeah.
But do you think that this woman, this young lady, is afraid to doubt and afraid to question? Because the next question was, I said, have you ever had doubts about your faith? She said, no, not at all.
She said no.
Yeah, she said no.
Do you think
exactly?
Do you think she
I
might?
don't doubt. I think she's had doubts.
Well, she says she hasn't even thought about it.
Yeah.
You asked her, is this something you've ever thought about? And she goes, no, it's just never thought. Okay, so she's never met someone who doesn't believe. Yeah. She's never been in a church where the preacher is preaching about doubt. Like, has this never occurred to her in her life that it's possible? Of course it has.
Yeah.
That's just where I'm getting this, you know, it's a thing of shame.
Yeah.
It's a sign of weakness. If you've ever had any doubts, it's a sign of weakness, which it shouldn't be.
Yeah. Well, if you listen to Christian preachers, of course, I used to do this too as a young preacher years and years ago. You would always make sure the congregation knew, do not doubt. Doubting is not good, right? You want to keep people from testing or doubting God because you'll figure this stuff out. So, yeah, I think it's a lot of fear.
Yeah, that's a lot of fear of losing everything you have.
Absolutely.
All your family, all the history, you're going to be an outcast. That's a hard position to be in.
It is, and it does happen. It happens to people.
Right.
They lose their families over this stuff. Yeah.
Right. Well, that's what's most important is your relationships in reality. Whether you believe that actively or not, the most important thing is your relationships. And nobody wants to lose their important relationships. And that's why there's this fear around it. There's this extreme fear of not wanting to be the outcast,
That's called protection identity crisis, and I'm going to discuss that with our buddy Hector Garcia coming up sometime.
Nice.
Yeah, we can talk about
forward to that.
Yeah, and he can explain. He's the psychologist. But
Yeah.
I've studied a little bit of that, and within their tribe and their group, I guess we all do that as humans to a certain extent. If she doubted and she had questions and figured this stuff out, like many of us have, she would lose her identity. That's her life and her identity, being a Christian and her family and so forth.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, that's what makes it so hard to come out of religion. It's not just a belief, it's a lifestyle, it's everything for a lot of people, not necessarily for everyone.
It's your whole family, it's where you live, it's what you're going to pass on, it's what your children are going to come to believe, and it does bind a community, a nation. You can control a lot of people if they're all believing the same thing.
Yep.
But what I find is most difficult is even if you come to that realization that that's not what you believe anymore, where do you go? Where do you go from there?
Good point. And of course, we know where they can go. We're trying to demonstrate this and show this to believers.
That's why we're here.
There is an alternative. It's called reality. There's an alternative. You can meet wonderful people.
And there are people who live in reality.
Yes.
Come, join us.
Reality.
Join us.
People, yeah. And we actually have compassion and kindness just like believers do. That's what I always tell Christians. We're just like you. I talked to a pastor the other day. He goes, "What do you mean? We're very analogous to you because it's human. We do the same thing you do. We just don't believe in the supernatural." That is a big difference. But he was blown away that we actually go out and do the things we do, feed homeless people, love each other, have a community, hug our children and grandchildren. This concept is so different for them.
It is. Yeah. And I think a perfect example, this was about a month ago when we were down at the Alamo, we had a woman approach us and she thought we were part of a church group.
Yeah.
And she came up and she's like, "Oh, what church are you guys a part of?" And she was like, all happy to see that we were out there. And Anthony Magnabosco was the one she came up to. And Anthony... If you don't know Anthony, he is like the sweetest guy in the world, and he talks that way. And he just goes, "Oh no, we're actually from the Atheist Community of Austin. We're out here just doing some activism." And she just gets this horrified look on her face, and she looks around at all of us. Yeah. And most of us I think all of us that day were men, but not all of us were white. And her comment was, "Are you guys white supremacists too?" And then she turned away and she walked off.
Yeah. She was shocked.
Like all of us were shocked.
Yeah,
she was shocked. We were shocked. We couldn't believe it. But it just shows like how
her brain went to a strange place.
Yes, but not a totally off the wall place. Like, yes, for us, that's totally off the wall. Yeah. But I think for a lot of believers out there, for people who are really, really into their religion, especially Christianity, they just see us as like these monsters, and that adds to the difficulty of getting out and actually addressing your beliefs if you do have doubt.
That's why we do what we do. I love what all our atheist activist friends are doing, these super intelligent men and women that can debate and go down the rabbit hole of Christian philosophy with all these Christians. That's not my style. But this is very important. We go out there and put a face on that which is being demonized. We just talk to people right down to where the rubber meets the road, and they can see us. They can see that we're moral and ethical, and we stand up against that BS, because we're going to have some dissenters, right, Ben? Because Ben's one of the producers producers, and thank you for all you do, Ben, by the way.
problem.
You and Mark, of course, Mark Vandenberg. So we're going to have some dissenters, and I'm going to cut loose one day, right, Ben, the producer?
It's going to happen.
And I'm going to stand up at the Alamo, maybe next Saturday, with a microphone and against one of those hateful Christian preachers. They're out there all the time. And I'm going to preach right back. Probably never been done before. Maybe it has been, I'm sure. And I'm going to counter everything he says. And most stuff he says, he has said in the past, was very hateful. He called us anything from a sodomite to evil and you name it. He was just quoting from the Bible. So, yeah, I mean, there are moments of just street epistemology, good stuff, but also there's sometimes we have to stand up against that and show them.
Well, sometimes you just need to be out front and center and show people what's going on, because I think that lady who had a very odd reaction was told certain things about certain people, and she hadn't really encountered someone.
Yeah, this was probably her first encounter, like face to face with atheists, as far as she know.
Yeah, that's why I'm not very good at digital dialogue. I mean, everybody else, most people I know, great. But for me, I'm out there face to face because they can misinterpret sometimes what you say. When they see you in person, they see you're friendly and nice, but you're not nice to their belief system. You're nice to them. It's a totally different game, and that's what I'm all about, and that's what Vanguard is about. Now, there's something else that she said. When I asked her this question, I asked her, what type of person would you be if you did not believe in God? And then, of course, she said, I would not be the same person without God. I'd be miserable. Well, she didn't do that. That's embellishment on my part. I would be miserable if I didn't believe in God. I hear that all the time.
Yep.
Well, that's why I know she's had doubts, right? Like, if you never had a doubt, you wouldn't even think about it. You'd be like, well, if I didn't have, well, I don't know. I haven't thought about it. She's had doubts, man. I mean, this is a pretty extraordinary claim. I'd be shocked if anyone who said they were a true believer never, ever had a doubt. It never entered their mind. So I can understand when she says I would probably be miserable is because she would lose everything she really cares about. Most likely. Yeah.
I mean, she may be miserable at the initial moment when she comes to that, like I did years ago. Many of us who thought our way out of Christianity, there was a hard time of nihilism and a little bit of stuff, at least for me.
Right. What's the point?
But then you outgrow that.
Yeah. If you're like 40, 50 years old, even 20, 30 years old, if this is some belief that you've held for your entire life, and again, not just some random belief like all cars are blue, like this is a real serious belief that is the foundation of her life. And to have that just wiped away is an incredibly difficult situation to be in. And I think you're right. She probably would be miserable for a little while. But the great thing about coming to terms with your belief is it's honest. And when you're honest with yourself and when you're honest about your beliefs, that gives you a much more solid foundation to build on than just this bullshit that keeps, you have to keep rationalizing and you have to come up with all these, you have to do all these mental gymnastics to actually believe this stuff. And it's got to be so exhausting. And once you're rid of that, and once you're able to get over that, fear of so much change, that in your life becomes so important. It becomes such an amazing feeling when you can be honest with yourself and address your beliefs in a way that you've never done before, because you don't have to do all these crazy mental gymnastics to actually believe it. You can actually look at yourself in the mirror and say, I believe this. I have reason for this. There's backup to this. It's not just some crazy idea. And that's again back to why we're here. We want to encourage that kind of thinking. And we, most importantly, for those people who get out of those situations, a lot of it is community, right? And
so let me say
community here
absolutely.
Now.
Well, let me, I don't mean to get off the topic, but it's all relevant, right? So people ask me, I've had my critics, I've been doing this activism of atheism by myself for years until the last few years, till I found some great people here that share the same passion I do. But some of my critics would say, David, why do you go out there? Why do you talk to believers? You can't change their mind. But they don't get it, some of them, because we do more than just sow seeds of doubt. We do it because we're driven by our human compassion. That, to me, this is secular humanism. It's part of it, to go out to help our fellow human beings, right? To make the world better. But it's more than just trying to help them to see that this is ancient BS and the world is a better place without it. But we also try to normalize it. That's another thing. It's always a win-win. You've heard me say that a gazillion times.
You're not going to change everybody's mind. People are going to think what they want to think. Someone who claims to have never had any doubts, and someone later on she says, it's a faith. Faith is what keeps you in God. You might never change her mind or sow any seeds of doubt, but it's very important just to be seen and show people what's going on with atheism. Right.
I think that kind of pushback on what we're going out and doing and what you've been doing for the past however many years, it comes from that place of not understanding. Like, we're not going out there to just turn everybody into an atheist and you guys need to believe what we believe. We're going out there mostly to normalize atheism, say, hey, look at us. We're not crazy demon people who are trying to eat your babies. Like, actually, I will eat your baby. But
well, if it's cooked properly, done.
Yeah.
Or raw, yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's the misconception is even from atheists, especially from atheists who look at this and say, hey, aren't you doing the same thing as those church groups are doing? You're going out there and you're preaching on the street. Yeah, you're preaching probably something that's a lot closer to the truth than they are, but that's what they think too.
But why is that?
But that's not what we're doing.
We're not going to knock on your door.
No, we won't. Wait a minute. Ooh, that's a good idea. No, I won't do that. That would be fun. That'd be a lot of fun.
No panthers,
I used to teach
tracks.
people how to go door to door. I would take groups out. Let's go out like Jesus. Then we'd go witnessing.
Coming soon.
But we won't do
Jehovah's Atheists to your door.
We're not
no
going to do
atheist
that.
tracks that we're going to hand
But
out.
my question is, what is wrong? Some people may get mad at me, but I don't care. I'm going to say it anyways. Why do some people think it's wrong for us to speak out against it and to offer these people an alternative? What's wrong with telling other people what you believe?
Because we live in a PC culture where expressing your beliefs is seen as shoving your beliefs onto people and trying to make them believe exactly what you believe. That's just kind of the world we live in. When you express yourself, people interpret it as, and not all the time, but there's a general sense of like, oh, that's what you believe. You wouldn't be saying it if you don't want me to believe that. So any expression of what you believe is seen as like this pushing onto people, and you need to believe what I believe, and that's not
I think
true.
some people might not be really ready to debate. They might not have a theological background like you do. They might not have a philosophical background. I certainly don't have any of that, But
a couple classes in college.
Some people might feel like they're not fully there to defend what they think and what they believe in the most eloquent way. And it can be tough to talk to somebody about these things when the whole culture, it seems, is kind of stacked against you. So
I guess my methodology, talking to believers, may be different than most, but like we did a mock debate. Do you remember seeing the mock debate that Andrew and I did on my show one time? He played a atheist himself who had no knowledge of the Bible, and I played my old self 30 to 40 years ago, right? Evangelist.
Jimmy Ray.
I didn't do the Jimmy Ray.
Oh, you didn't?
I did my regular
okay.
self. I did myself as a young man 40 years ago. But
I thought that was Jimmy Ray.
No, we did a Jimmy Ray video. We got to bring Jimmy Ray on the show sometime. Now we got to bring old JC in here too. So Ben's got a character.
One day.
He's Jesus, dressed up like Jesus. And at the Alamo, when we were finished with our interviews, we went into my vehicle where his clothing was, and he changed into his Jesus attire, and Ben was doing
Jesus clothing,
anointed Holy Ghost clothing.
JC is the field reporter for a show, Really Bible.
Really Bible. Look it up. My buddy Ben.
You to read the Bible.
So, folks, this is all new. This is grassroots stuff we're doing here called Atheist Vanguard, and I'm very excited about it. And I got a whole team, and we're all going to do this together as a team. I'm so excited.
So we're going out. We're meeting people. If you have questions for atheists, if you have any kind of odd, random thing you want to talk about, hit us up. we'll tell you.
All right. All right. Well, let's close this thing up. Thank
sir.
you so much for watching Atheist Vanguard. You guys have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.